Welcome to today's mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. आप सबनों प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब and shalom. Sometimes it is so much overwhelming. Things change so rapidly. Information is on the tips. Things happen, and it is so hard sometimes to decide what to take and what to leave. But whatever is possible in this short span, I try to put it together. So as we know, G20 is going on right now in India, and by the end of this month, the meeting is going to happen in Amritsar in Punjab. Already there are people who are trying to sabotage that meeting by giving some statements, and of course Ajnala happening with Amritpal Singh, who, with all due respect to everybody, it is shameful that he used the Guru Granth Sahib's palki to storm the police station. One thing which I don't understand, when you talk to the people, they talk about that he's talking about preaching the Sikhism, being Amritari, this and that. That's fine. Why you need to have all these people with the guns around you then? Nobody is stopping you from preaching the Sikh religion. There are other preachers too. Why? And the title is very interesting. What is Punjab Day? Which Punjab you are talking about? The one which you will create with all this trouble and problems, or the Punjab which was Maharaja Ranjit Singh's Punjab, or before that, the Punjab which gurus put in their life to make it. Even though we are divided, we have West Punjab, we have East Punjab, and East Punjab we have Himachal, Haryana, and whatever is left of the Punjab. And but still, there are some cultural things which are still there, which are definitely being crushed, or there are a lot of efforts going on to crush that mindset and mentality of the Punjabis. And one of the way is to, like they say, don't let the person to be stable. Once a person gets some stability, they will start thinking. Once they start thinking, that will be an issue. And maybe that's why Amritpal Singh made a statement that we do not need to study. And interestingly, the car he travels was produced, designed, and done everything by those people who are educated. The phone he is using was designed and produced by those educated people who have the masters. And beyond that, the guns which him and his followers are carrying, they are also like that. So for me, I don't know. I'm really confused here that what is the end target which is about to be achieved. But staying on the issue is G20, the resolution is still to come out of the G20 meets from the finance ministers as well as from the foreign ministers. And one of the sticking point is the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because even though there was a time when Jawaharlal Nehru made India as a non-aligned nation, and there was a whole group of non-aligned nations, and that group of non-aligned nations actually they tried to stay clear of the polarized bloc of Russian bloc as well as of American bloc, even though indirectly they were still dependent on a lot of things which were being done by these two blocs one way or the other. Like India needed Russia every time there was a motion of in Security Council against whatever was happening in Jammu and Kashmir. And Pakistan was being supported by America in 1971 war. United States did send out its Sixth Fleet, which basically is a aircraft carrier with the warships around it to protect that aircraft carrier and for other wars. And I still remember that at that time, the Indian Air Force asked for the volunteer pilots, kamikaze pilots, and there was a lot of those kamikaze pilots, and majority of them, they were the Punjabi Sikhs, because we love our freedom of thoughts, freedom of speech, and the environment which we grew up in. So that Ukraine conflict is such an issue that it is not the communique which they have to issue the statement, which has to be agreed on with everyone. Every country has their own interest in this Russia-Ukraine war. And because of that situation, that joint communique is not coming out. And that is something which actually does not look good on the part of India in a way, because India is not condemning the war. I can understand the politics behind it, because Russia always stood with India. India is standing with Russia right now, even though whatever is happening in Ukraine, I don't agree, people don't agree. Who is winning, who is losing, depending on what media you are listening to, that will depend on. You need to dig much deeper into it to find out exactly what's going on. But at the same time, there is one thing which definitely is there, that India is reaping the benefit of that. And on the other hand, there is another issue going on right now, because China, there are tensions between China and United States. And the tensions were on a couple of things, including COVID, with the COVID, and trade was another issue, because in China, quote unquote, based on the government's assessment of United States, that China is using mixing the private sector's innovation with the army, which happens everywhere in the world. Even in United States it happened, but yeah, they have their own way of keeping it out there as a separation. But how much it is separate, nobody knows. But yes, on the papers, it definitely looks separate. Same thing with the Europe. We have here like Boeing, but Boeing is also into designing and manufacturing the fighter planes. Same thing in Europe, the Airbus. They are also involved in the technology is probably either shared or not, I don't know, but definitely there is something where, you know, French Rafale and British, I think it is Typhoon air fighter. So they have their own things going on. So in other words, what I'm trying to say here is that we have this conflict of interest in the international affairs, which cannot be overlooked. But at the same time, there is a conflict which between US and China, which is beyond that. And because of that conflict, and we should not forget that in February of last year, there was a joint statement from President Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin between Russia and China, that the friendship beyond whatever the term they used, Interestingly, in 1974, Russia wanted to bomb the Chinese Atomic Research Center, and United States was the country which at that time told Russia, don't do it. See how the politics changes, how you can say, even though they give the term of maturity, but is it really a maturity, or is it that every nation has their own interest at that point in history, and based on that point in history, they make some decisions? They definitely look down the road, and one of the reasons why America at that time was with China was because American interest was to make China stand up on its own, because China was looking for everything from Russia. And to break Russia, or break the back of Russian nations, China was a pawn which was used by Americans and the Western countries. And now China is standing on its own. Now China is standing up and taking some stands which people here, they do not feel comfortable. And that is where the sticking point comes in. Now China is planning to provide armaments to Russia for war against Ukraine. Probably Russia is not producing enough ammunition and everything at the scale they need for the war. And now after the winter, there is a thaw. Kherson is the target between both. And even actually in Punjabi culture, they talk about, Guru Nanak Dev Ji also mentioned Kherson as a place. And we always say Balkh and Bukhara, those are the cities in those that part of the world. And that is something, so that fight right now to capture that city, even though based on the conversations of the people who specialize in army, from the army point of view, it may not be that important, but it has become a very important statement between both the countries, the Ukraine and Russia, for Ukraine to keep it and for Russia to win it. And on the other hand, we also have what we call the Iran factor, and that's another thing which we will talk right after the break. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. So going back on what we're talking about, the war between Russia and Ukraine and the effects of the war. Iran is now planning to, Iran has already supplied drones to Russia, which Russia used effectively, kamikaze drones. And now Russia is going to provide the technology to Iranians for the missiles to go beyond what they have capabilities now. Now, what could happen with all this? We already know that Israel and Iran, both of them, they have the fight going on, proxy war between both the countries. It's a shadow war, if you may call it. And in that shadow war, what is actually happening is something which actually has ripple effects throughout the Middle East and throughout that immediate area of the world. Iraq, of course, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Israel, and beyond that, then it goes down to Yemen, and on and on and on. By declaring an open war against Iran, killing the head of their security forces by hitting him by the United States. On the one hand, US claims we can do whatever we want. On the other hand, if other country does, no, you cannot do it because I say you cannot do it. So that's, for me, yeah. I can understand being a United States citizen, living in the United States. I love this country, no doubt about it. But at the same time, the policies, I beg to differ with them on few of them. The reason basically is that there should be a balance. I understand that. For example, Saudi Arabia is using American manufactured ammunition to kill the civilians in Yemen, and nobody talks about it. Not a single person. What happened in Afghanistan, we saw that. What happened in Iraq, we saw that. And it is happening in other parts of the world. I still remember during the Afghanistan war and Iraq war, using the drone, a wedding party was killed by hitting using a drone. How many people know that? So what I'm trying to say here is that we as individuals, number one, we need to understand what's going on, not just around us, but nationally and then internationally. Number two, you should communicate with your elected officials because ultimately the decisions are made by them. The laws are established and then you end up following the law, unless if law is something which hurts you, you still follow it till the law is changed in those either state level or federal level, depending on where the law is. Look at what happened to Roe versus Wade. 1972, it was abortion was made legal federally. It took the group 50 years to get it cancelled. And how they got it cancelled? They actually had in Supreme Court the justices who actually listens more to their religion than to the Constitution. I'm not saying there is nothing wrong in listening to your religion, but what I am saying is there should be a separation within the religion and this kind of politics, because the politics which is based solely on one branch of religion is hurtful to the other people who follow any other religion. And those people who get discriminated, including me, based on my faith, yeah, we may not take a stupid action, but at the same time we do certain things staying within the law, like getting the laws changed in the New York State to serve in NYPD with the bearded turban. Mr. Taliwal in Texas and Dallas, he got it done in that police department, even though it is not a statewide policy over there yet. But those kind of things, you know, there is another place, I don't remember the name, in Florida, where this young kid got it done. So all these things, they do matter. And that's where the democracy comes into the play. And when we talk about democracy and democratic system coming into the play, we should not forget what happened on January 6th of 2020. Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, gave the access to, Tucker Carlson from Fox News, about 44,000 hours of the tape, because different cameras at different locations, and that probably also ultimately, when it is just a matter of time when it gets into the hands of the people, the other people who can always break into the system and look at it to hit the Capitol again. And if that happens, then yes, Donald Trump, with his rhetoric of retribution election is going to use everything. God forbid if he becomes the president again in the United States, you are looking at a dictatorship, not a electoral presidential, but dictatorship. Florida is already working on killing the Democratic Party as a party in Florida, and other states, the election deniers are doing their best, even though right now the court system is taking some stand. There are very few people who actually are not really looking at the law, like the one who appointed a special, there was the term which was used, which was going to go through the papers, documents which were recovered from Mar-a-Lago to make sure that, there is a separation of attorney-client privileges, blah, blah, blah. For a better part, there are some senators, not in the Congress, lower house of the Congress, not the House of Representatives, but the U.S. senators. Some of the Republican elected U.S. senators, they have openly condemned what Tucker Carlson is doing on Fox News. Now it is the openly known secret that 2020 election, even though Fox knew that Joe Biden won, but John Hannity, Carl Tuckerson, and Harpreet, there is another third person who is a lady, they pushed unproved voter fraud, that the machines automatically transfer the votes from from Trump to Biden, whereas they don't say anything about same people from Republicans who won from the same ballot. And Fox News was afraid that they will lose their rating, and because of the rating they will lose the money. Now Dominion has a lawsuit going on, and that lawsuit actually is bringing out all these facts out there, and that is an issue now. And what would happen in the court, I don't know, but definitely one thing is for sure, that there are very few people who are finally saying Fox should not have lied to us. Again, going back to democratic process, democracy is not something given by the God. Democracy is something which actually was created for us based on our rules, that how, and democracy, you cannot protect a democratic system unless you participate in it. And your participation in democratic system is so important because it matters. Let me share here one more thing. Within Sikh religion, the rule of Panj Pyaras basically is a democratic system, even though people try to take advantage of it. We are human beings. We always look for what I want at any cost. Same thing is happening with other democratic institutions in the world. And I'm sorry to say at the same time also that in India too, right now democracy also is under threat. Why? Because there are things going on which make me uncomfortable. Okay? People are going in droves, leaving their party, joining BJP. Maybe in the back of their mind there is something like, either you join or something would happen. Case in point, Mr. Bajwa, who is a leader of the opposition party in Punjab Assembly, he actually said to Bhagwant Mann that he be ready to get arrested, which means what? that there is something going on behind the scenes between all these people to let not AAP government succeed in Punjab. For me, the question is not whether AAP government succeeds in Punjab or not. For me, the question is how the laws are interpreted and implemented. And if they are not done properly, then there is a danger. Today it is you, tomorrow it could be somebody else. And that also brings me my attention to something which I'm going to talk after the break. We will take a small break and I will be right back. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor again. I'm going to discuss a very interesting few things here before the end of this show. I know I have been talking about the other issues about Ukraine, Russia, and internationally what is happening and how it affects the United States also, whether we understand it or not. But yes, it does affect locally. Afghanistan war was a drain on American economy, no doubt about it. And believe it or not, the money spent on that war was not even part of the budget. It was being done out of the regular budget which is presented to the government by the different presidents, starting from George W. Bush. How they were hiding, where they were putting these expenses, and how everything was being done, I don't know. And honestly, I don't have the time to investigate that, because that needs you to do a full-time investigation and full-time job. But yes, I know one thing as a fact, that the breakfast sandwiches were being served in Iraq for $85 a burger. $85 for a burger being served by those private contractors. And this is where the lines get blurred between what are the objects and how to achieve what needs to be achieved. So talking about Tucker Carlson's, what he has done by cherry picking some of the things, and Josh Hawley, who was actually caught running to save his life, like any other senators at that time when Capitol was attacked. He is saying that Josh Hawley was running like everybody else. Yeah, but why? For what? I don't care whether you are a Democrat or a Republican. There are few institutions, those institutions are sacrosanct. If you attack those institutions, then you literally are going on the way to destroy the nation as it is. And I can see that those divisions, I can see those cracks appearing, whether you go to the schools, you go to the university, you go to the other institutions. And I'm not blaming just the right extremists. I'm blaming left extremists also. If they don't like what a professor wrote, they just start yelling and universities end up canceling. No, that's not the way to do it. If I don't like what you are saying, or you don't like what I'm saying, just change the channel. Go somewhere else. Find something else. But it doesn't mean that use all the means to cancel the communication. Again, it's a question of freedom of speech. Yes, sanctity of the institution should be preserved. Ethically, use the proper language. I'm shocked at the language which is used these days at the Capitol itself. It's a shame. And then we had a CPAC, which is actually one of those organizations of the Republicans where every contender who wants to be the President of the United States goes there, and we had some of them, including Nikki Haley and including Trump. He is talking about retribution and getting even, which means basically the former President Donald Trump has not reconciled to his defeat of 2020 election, and he will do everything to destroy the democratic setup of this country, as I see it. I hope I'm wrong, and I really pray I'm wrong. But I don't think I'm wrong. If he gets reelected, then he will find enough people to be at the top and destroy the institutions. It takes years to build up any institution, but it takes a very short time to destroy it. Faith in electoral system. Nobody questioned it till he came in and he lost election, and all of a sudden he said, well, the votes were switched, votes were transferred, and everybody else followed. Carrie Lake, presumable vice presidential candidate, came out with a claiming that she is the top second holder. Like I said previously, Nikki Haley is running proudly looking to be the vice presidential candidate. Because as a presidential candidate, like Trump and some other people have already said in my previous show, I mentioned about it, that how there are already conversations and discussions. People are being told, go back, telling Nikki Haley to go back to her country where she came from. She has no right to be here, even though she ran North Carolina real well when she ran. And yes, that also reminds me another thing, which of course these extreme elements, they will not like it, that the crossing on the border from the south, it has gone down so much. I was reading about it, that the steam out of the Republicans, that all these people who are coming across the border, there is no control and nothing. And yes, let's not forget, there is a term which is being used constantly, and that term is, they talk about illegal people coming in. Those are druggies and rapists. Basically, if you are not a white Caucasian and you are coming across the border, you are a rapist, you are a criminal. And if you don't like the judge, who is not your namesake, he is called out. And then you get the hate mails. The judges, it hurts me to see that the government now has to protect the justices from different courts just because they gave a judgment. It used to be that judge will write a judgment, the judge will look at the case, follow the law, based on the law, and the case, give a judgment. You don't like the judgment, you go to the next higher court. If you don't like the judgment, you go to the next higher court. But nobody threatened the justices. Now that is also happening, which means Democratic electoral side, which is the House and the Senate, it was attacked, and already doubts are being created for that. Justices are being threatened. So out of the three branches, the presidential branch is left where already Joe Biden is not, accepted as a genuinely elected president. And on top of that, the threats to kill the Jews. I will never forget one of my Jewish friends, he once made a comment. He said, even though I was born in this country, my parents came in, and some of the Jewish family, their grandparents came in. And he said that we are told that do not trust this country. And he was like, see what is happening now? That's why our parents were telling me not to trust this country. That's why we were being told not to trust. When that trust is broken, it is not just that trust. A lot of other things get broken with that. And that is another one of them. And that also brings me to another situation which is going on in Israel right now, where the new law is being proposed to control the power of the courts. Why? Because Netanyahu / Bibi was actually undergoing criminal investigation. There was a case going on against him, and he was going to get that case. He has to fight that case. Now what he is doing is he is actually reining in the court so that the judges can be intimidated. Let's not forget one thing. How many people you know who will sacrifice everything in their life to stand for the right thing? How many? Generally it is like, oh yaar main ki lena hai, main kamai karta hai, ਨਿਆਣੇ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਰੋਟੀ ਖਾਂਦੇ ਆ, blah blah blah, But we are standing actually on the institutions which were, and the nations which were built by those people who decided to lose everything in their life because they believed in something. And that was also how India got freedom, even though it was a crippling freedom at that time. But somebody got to do it. And let us hope that we as individuals start thinking about and doing what needs to be done. With that note, till next time, good night and good luck.